Hi, I'm Panda Hershey with Your Full Expression. Welcome to the January 19th Coffee and Charts call, where we talk about the current Venus and Mercury retrogrades. During the call, we'll watch an animation of the movement of the planets over the next couple weeks, and I'll give you a heads up about January 22nd and 23rd, when we may feel pretty busy because Mercury and the Sun will be passing each other in opposite directions. We'll also see that Venus stations at 11 degrees Capricorn for about 9 days, and Mercury will pass backward over Pluto, giving us another opportunity to think about how we are using our tools and our wisdom, especially over the next 6 to 8 weeks. Finally, there will be a brief discussion about those blank spots or blind spots in our natal chart. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, well, good morning, everyone. It's 8:30. Welcome to Coffee and Charts. And just a reminder, I send out the recording in a few days after I kind of record an intro and an afterword. And so if you miss anything, you can always come back and look at that. But before we talk about the upcoming energy that we're going to feel for the next couple of weeks, I wanted to just note that this last weekend was a big one for in terms of the energy, and whatever you were mindfully doing, kind of giving your time and attention to, is emblematic of what will kind of be a focus for you from now until the beginning of March, and also an underlying energy for the whole year. It's almost like, if you've worked in a corporate world, it's like almost you get your feedback from your review. And at the end of that review, there's always here's what you're going to be working on this year. And it's kind of like your underlying energy, like everything that you do, it's going to be, well, Panda, we really want you to work on making sure you speak up in a meeting, like that kind of thing. It'll be that underlying energy. And when we get to the end of this portal, we'll talk about that and see if you're feeling it. But you can kind of keep that in mind. So I'm going to share my screen. Just as a reminder, we are in the midst of this Venus in Capricorn portal, which is now in retrograde. And we're also in the Mercury in Capricorn and Aquarius portal, also in retrograde. And these are connected by that Pluto portal, which is where it is in these 2.5 degrees of Capricorn all year. And this past weekend was all about the Sun moving through those degrees, which is why you may have felt it as pretty powerful. So if you look at pages 4 and 5 in your guide, I show where this is happening in your chart. And this is my chart. So here is Capricorn, that green symbol, and it could be anywhere around the circle on your chart. And you can see here's the Venus retrograde going from 11 to 26 degrees of Capricorn. The Mercury retrograde going from 24 degrees to 10 degrees of Aquarius, and in the middle is Pluto, and everyone's got that in their own chart. So this is kind of the area of your life where you're going to feel a lot of effort and attention going to. So at the end of this call, for those of you who are new, and if we get some new joiners, I'm going to go over some of looking at that in your book just as an intro. Okay, so let's take a look at the planet movements. So I'm going to wind it back a couple days to when the Sun and Pluto were at 26.5 degrees of Capricorn. I've made a couple adjustments to what I'm showing. First, instead of choosing to have the Sun at noon, if you remember the last time I kept the Sun at noon, I've decided to switch it up and keep the orientation of the chart the same. So when you look at many charts online, you'll see they put this Pisces Aries border right at the left-hand side of the horizon. And this is kind of that traditional, I'll say, orientation. So you're going to see the chart stay the same, and the planets will move through the chart. So the sun will move counterclockwise in its natural progression, like we're moving around the sun. It's actually our perspective of the sun going around us, right? That's from our view, that's what's happening. And we'll watch everything else move as well. Okay, so January 16th, the sun and Pluto were at 26.5 degrees. Just to orient you again, Venus is here in pink. It's in retrograde. There's a little R here. Mercury is green. That is also in retrograde. It's got a little R there. So they are moving in the clockwise direction, and everything else is going to be ticking forward. Okay, so let's watch. Here we are today. Look at the Sun and Mercury coming together here. And then on the 23rd, they cross each other. This happens with every Mercury retrograde. There is a point at which the Sun and Mercury pass each other in opposite directions. And it always seems to be a crazy time, especially the day before. So just give yourself space. Try not to overbook yourself. This is a day when what we're doing and what we're thinking about tend to be the same thing. So the idea would be perhaps someone comes to you and says, oh, you should try this. And the opportunity to actually do it is right there. So that's why it gets to be so crazy. Okay. And if it doesn't happen to you, you may notice it in the people around you, and it's your opportunity to watch them, right? And kind of be a stabilizing force in some way, or just observe for yourself. Like, what can I take away from what's going on around me? Okay. On the 25th, Venus gets to 11 degrees Aquarius, and it stays here for about 9 days. So just what this is with any stationing, it tends to be like in one spot for a while. So you'll see it not move. On the 28th, Mercury crosses back across Pluto. So this is an opportunity to think about, what am I actually doing? Someone may talk to you about how you're applying your tools. This is a good time to make a note for yourself or talk to someone about what's going on. And finally, on the 29th, Venus actually stations at 11 degrees. And then it will keep staying there and move forward. And that takes us to February 2nd, which is when we meet again. So I'm going to back it up and we're going to run through it. No talking. Okay, ready? Okay, is that helpful? One thing to point out, and this is going to be why we feel this energy of the late Capricorn degrees so intensely. If you watch perhaps on the recording, you'll see that Mars is catching up to Venus. Those two are going to move together. Mars is actually going to pass Venus because it's so slow. And then Venus is going to cross Mars again. And that all happens at the end of February for the last 2 weeks. Intense time in these degrees, right? So when they cross together over Pluto, watch out, like stuff's going to happen, both for yourself and for the world. And so think about what has been happening in the world this past weekend take that energy and like really blow it up in some ways for the end of February, and things will shift and happen. Okay. All right. And just a note, I'm going to be posting these videos, I think the daily planet movements, either on YouTube or on the website. So you can always go back and look. And I think I'll do it as a cumulative thing. So you could like look through the whole thing and look for a specific time and watch it, which I think is helpful in some ways. Okay, so let's look over some of the questions to ponder over the next couple weeks. We saw that Venus is going to station at 11 degrees Capricorn for really 9 days. The questions here are really for just for 5, but it really is a bigger period. And so there may be some clarity that you've gotten about your capabilities that have happened since Venus passed through this back in mid-November. Think about all that you've done since then. You actually have become more aware of, oh yeah, these tools I have, I still have them, or I forgot to use them. Someone reminded me, or I've accumulated some since then. So this is the gathering of your tools, and you're going to be applying them going forward. Okay. So, and then as Venus comes back through Capricorn, you'll really have some wind in your sails. In the Mercury retrograde portal, I mentioned that the Mercury and Sun pass each other. So on January 23rd and even the 22nd, the day before, you can feel it coming sometimes. How am I actually trying out one of the ideas that I've had, or perhaps someone gives me an idea and I'm doing it? So just keep in mind, January 22nd, 23rd, try not to overbook yourself, and like give yourself space that if something comes up suddenly, you can actually go do it. And then the Pluto portal, note that this Mercury, so the Sun passed through from January 16th to the 18th. And this whole Mercury portal is contained within here. And on the next page are the questions. But the question here for January 27th to the 29th is that Mercury passing back over Pluto. And it's how might I want to like readjust my thinking or make adjustments in some way to how I'm applying my experience this year. Maybe feedback from someone, or it may be something that you come up with on your own. Okay, any questions? Okay, it is not too late to go back and make notes on what you gave your energy to this past weekend. And I would encourage you to do that. Okay, there was a great question last time from Christine about blank spots in our charts. And so I want to just be aware of the time here. So blank spots in our charts, let's just define that. It's sort of any place in our chart where we don't have a planet. So if you think about it, actually most of our chart is blank. And the one caveat here is really any orbiting body in our solar system deserves a spot in our chart. So I put, like a dozen things in there. There's so much more, but the ability for us to comprehend and assemble all that, very limited, right? So there's, I'm sure, thousands of things that help fill in some of those spaces, but I don't show them all, and they exist in some way. So while most of our charts are actually blank, they are still part of us. They are the parts of us, they're almost blind spots. I am thinking of it in that way. And we learn about them from being with other people. So then when you take this question of how a transit moves through a place that is blank in us, we can watch and learn and wait for our turn. So I have a couple examples of this. One of these, I'm going to mute you. Okay. The one example I give you, I can give is if you've been on a sports team or in any kind of theatrical production where you are part of it, but you're not on stage, you can watch what's happening and learn about the situation that's going on by noticing, oh, this person's having a tough time today, or this person's doing really well. So when I get up on stage and I have to interact with them, I'm actually ready to work with that and make it go as smoothly as possible. So that's one thing we can do during our blank opportunities. Same thing on a sports team. You know, someone keeps missing all the fly balls, you just know you're going to have to back them up. That's just how it is sometimes, but it's our opportunity to watch. And unfortunately, it's also a time when we may be like ready to say, get me out there, I'm ready. But the situation just doesn't allow you to do it. And it can be a whole year or 2 years before you get your turn. And there is absolutely nothing you can do. And so one of the things that I hope to workshop or perhaps bring into these discussions is about how to learn about when it's your turn. And the first step to doing that is looking at the table on page 2 of your guide or your nightstand journal. And this is mine. There is this table here of all of your natal planets in order from 0 to 29 degrees. And you'll notice I have two things at 1 degree, but I have a blank spot until about 5 degrees. So 2, 3, 4, it's blank for me. I also have a big blank spot between Saturn at 11 degrees and 11.5 degrees up to 17 degrees, so 6 degrees. So if I had one of these larger planets like Pluto passing in between there, it'd be my time to just watch. Now, I talk about the degrees during the call. Pluto is moving from 26 to 28.5. I have something in the middle there. Mercury at 27 degrees. It's not in Capricorn, it's in Libra. And the difference in the signs speaks to the comfort level I have with working with it. So Libra is here. Libra is about working one-on-one with someone, connecting with one person's energy. But Capricorn's way over here. You'll hear it referred to as a square because it is 3 signs away. And people say squares are bad. No, it's not that it's bad. It's more that it's not what you're used to. It's uncomfortable. It's not natural. Me speaking in front of a crowd is not natural. So that is what the discomfort is. And, you know, how do you deal with discomfort? You do it with people who love you. You do it in a way that you feel supported, that you feel safe. And so you draw on other ways to get through that because you can't run away from it. And we'll talk about that, and I'll probably try to workshop it in some way. So that's just to get you started, but that's how to find the blank spots, right? Anytime I talk about the degrees for a transit, you come to your little table and say, oh, it goes from, you know, the Venus one goes from 26 to 11. So here it starts at 26 and then it wraps around and it goes all the way to 11. So you can do the same on your table. So any questions so far? That was such a good question, Christine. Thank you for that.
That was such a good answer. Thank you, Panda.
Thanks, Zara. Anyone else? Thank you, you guys. It is 8:50 on the dot. I love you all. Invite your friends if you find it interesting, and we'll get them set up. Okay. Well, if anyone wants to stay on and do a little bit of guide work, retrograde portal guide work or whatever, I'm going to stay on and run through some of that. And I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Panda. It's awesome.
Good. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. So what I wanted to do is walk through how to use the guide for some of you are getting it for the first time, and this is just a nice little intro for how to get started on it. Okay, it's trying to get into full screen mode. Let's hope it can. Yes. Okay, so on pages 4 to 5, we looked at it earlier, and what it shows, each of you has your own chart, and all of these transits around the edges, the blue ones, the blue arcs, are for the personal planets. That would be Mercury, Venus, and Mars, and we get a touch of all of those this year. If you look at any of those, all of those blue arcs, there are pages for each one of them individually that follow. So if you turn the page after all of the, where all of them are shown, the next one is with the Venus retrograde portal, and you'll see just the Venus arc shown in your chart. So you look where that blue arc is, and then you see that it overlaps a certain portion of your chart, and you go down to the pie slices, and they're numbered from 1 to 12. 1 is below the thick horizontal line, and it goes in a counterclockwise direction, 1 all the way to 12, and then you get back to 1 again. Do you see that? And then where you see where the blue arc is, you can see which pie slice corresponds to that blue arc. And then you can, if you flip further in your journal, you turn to the pages that say, you know, for me, it was in the 10th house. So the pie slice number was 10. So I would flip the journal to the pages that say 10th house. And for you, it will be something different. And that is where you can answer your questions. So if you flip further ahead to Pluto and go to this, the first page, which shows your chart and a tiny, tiny little red arc, that is showing over one part that's actually overlapping with the Venus and the Mercury retrogrades. And then you can see that little slice is somewhere in your chart. You go down to that pie slice and you flip to that. And in those journal pages, make a note. What was I doing this past weekend? Because the sun traveled right over that area. Over those exact 2.5 degrees, the sun moves through that. So whatever you were doing, it might have been, I decided to clean my house that day, right? Or I'm getting some exercise, or whatever it is. I was dealing with injuries, cut heads, and a kitty that wasn't eating. So that's where my time and attention went this past weekend. I've got a note of that in my journal. That's what I was working on. And we'll see if there are other things that come through as Mercury comes back, as Venus and Mars come through. You'll see some connection in some way. And that will help you think about, what is my underlying theme for the year? But this is how you go through and find that in your chart. So any questions? I hope that was clarifying.
Yeah, it was. It helped.
Great. Cameron, did that make sense to you?
Yeah, it did.
Great. Ara?
So Pluto started, it's just a tiny, tiny slice, but it says that's just the portal opening.
It's the whole, the portal opening was on January 6th. That's when Pluto was at the exact degree.
Uh-huh.
But it really only, that's its little home for the entire year, 26 to 28 and a half degrees. It doesn't move out of that spot because it's so far away for us to
Right.
see it move.
Right.
It is moving in space, but from our perspective, it's barely
Not very
moving at
much.
all.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So this will kind of get you going. You now have some questions that you can kind of be thinking about for over the next couple weeks and a few days. We've got what is it? Mercury passing by Pluto. Oh, the sun crosses each other. It's the Mercury and the sun cross each other in a few days. So it's a good day to just make a couple notes. Well, what was I doing? That kind of thing. And you'll see how it may build to something else later. But that's the idea behind having a little trigger to say, this is a good time to just pay attention to what was happening. And that's what these guides are kind of all about. They're very generic. And I want to get into how they can be more specific for all of you. And we touched on that very briefly, but these are all just this is meant for everyone and for the world. You can notice this in the whole world, how maybe January 22nd and 23rd are going to be a little crazy. Okay. All right.
Is there a guide to the relevance of the 0 to 29 degrees, the 30 degrees? So Pluto's staying within just a couple of degrees for that whole time. So I can see like the 12 houses and their attributes, their relevance. The 30 degrees, are there specific attributes for when something's is positioned in a specific degree like that?
There is, I would say there's a book out there that's called Inside Degrees that talks about some of this in a very different kind of way. I don't quite relate to it. When I think about it generically, I think of 0 degrees as kind of surface energy. Anything from say 0 to 10 is like cocktail party energy. You can chit chat, you can do certain thing, be a certain way, but you don't get into, how your kid is sick or you're having trouble at your daycare or how, work is horrible or wonderful, or, I just met this guy and he's the most wonderful thing in the world, or whatever. Then as you get into 10, 11 to 20 degrees, that's sort of the daily life. There's some substance to it. It is the energy that people that you work with probably have a real sense of because they see you every day. They know how you work. It's more than surface level energy. And then from 21 to 29 and a half degrees, 30 degrees, you get the deepest parts of you. These are the parts of you, like my voice, my Mercury, being able to get out what I have to say and what I think is so hard for me. It's so deep for me. I have so much I want to say. And for me to pull it all together is very hard. And so those deep energies are the most personal parts of ourselves. The people at work may never see that. If you have Mars down there, Brett Kavanaugh has Mars way down there. We didn't get to see that angry part of him until his confirmation hearings, right? He could be the cocktail guy all day, and he probably is with his students. But that Mars energy was so deep, it took these really intense times to pull it out for us to see it. And that's how deep this year will be. So I hope that's helpful, Min.
Yeah, no, that's
But-
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
No one else talks about this, and I'm not sure why that is. Okay. Well, there's so much to chew on here. Ara, Juanita, and Cameron, I know I'll be talking to all of you soon, so come up with questions. We can talk about that. Min, I'll get to see you hopefully tomorrow. And you guys, I'm always here to support you, be with you on your journey. I'm so glad that you're with me on mine. I hope you're feeling prepared for a few busy days ahead, especially on January 22nd and 23rd, when Mercury and the Sun pass each other. During the call, there was a great question about degrees, especially as they relate to the natal planets in our chart. That is a topic I hope to continue exploring in future calls, and I hope you'll join us. If you'd like to learn more, please visit my website at yourfullexpression.com to learn more. I'll see you soon. Thanks.